The chief author of the bill that expands the penalties for synthetic drugs joins me now, Senator Scott Newman. Thanks for joining us at Capitol Report.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with this bill, which will be a law effective August 1st, but essentially selling synthetic drugs was already a crime. Why make it a felony instead of a gross misdemeanor?
Well, for a couple of reasons. I think you have to go no further than to look at what was going on up in Duluth and the consternation that that community was in over the sale of these drugs would go a long ways to answering your question. The other thing is that they're just flat dangerous. I mean, the folks who buy these, and oftentimes they're youngsters, you literally don't know what it is that you are buying. And the idea that these bath salts or synthetic drugs are being put together, you literally do not know what kind of chemicals are in there, and you don't know how they're going to affect your body. They're literally poisonous.
For the sake of our viewers, why don't you go into a little more detail about what happened in Duluth and what precipitated your attaching your name to this legislation?
There was there is, and there still is, a store up in Duluth, down in the business area, and the guy that owns this got into selling what are called bath salts. Some people call it synthetic marijuana, but they're synthetic drugs. And all you have to do is watch the news a little bit, and you will see that they are having a devastating effect on people, literally killing people. The problem is that we have got laws in Minnesota that list what are called controlled substances, i.e. they're illegal. And so what this guy in Duluth and others, other misguided people, were doing is they're changing the chemical makeup of the compound a little bit. All of a sudden it's no longer a controlled substance, therefore not illegal. So what we are trying to do with this law, and the law that we passed last year, is to stay ahead of them. And it's a bit of a foot race, I've got to admit. But in order for a substance to be illegal, such that you could prosecute for it, for the sale or the use of it, is you have to be able to somehow define it. And that is the real difficulty in this, is when they change the chemical compound by a little bit, all of a sudden it's not listed on the schedule of controlled substances, therefore it's not illegal.
And the Board of Pharmacy is going to have quite a hand in determining what is an illegal substance under this new law as well. Why give them the authority?
What we're trying to do, and the authority that the board has is frankly quite limited. I mean, they are being given some expedited authority where they see a drug that, for instance, doesn't have any legitimate medical purposes, and there are some other criteria, then they can move faster than the legislature in adding this compound to the list that is illegal. But also remember that this is a very limited authority that we gave them, and they do have to come back in front of the legislature and justify what they have done. So I'm pretty comfortable with that expedited, very narrow authority that we have given them.
You said, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I was going to say, we need the help from the Board of Pharmacy because they understand the chemical compounds, and I will guarantee you that us legislators do not.
And let's talk a little bit about this foot race that you brought up. Essentially, as it was stated in that news conference, the Board of Pharmacy, when it might identify a new drug, a new chemical compound that perhaps wasn't already covered, there's a bit of a lag time before that drug could be incorporated under this legislation. They stated about 3 to 4 months as a timeline. So as far as this foot race and trying to keep up on this war against drugs, how much closer do you think this legislation gets authorities?
Quite a bit closer, and here's the reason. Is instead of listing drugs by their chemical makeup or chemical compound, we have now listed drugs on the basis of what are being called analogs. I'm not too sure what that means, except in layman's terms. We now have a law in place that will look at a drug as how it affects the brain receptors, as opposed to how it is made up from a chemical standpoint. That's important for when the BCA gets into court. Their experts, their druggists, will be able to testify this particular drug affects the brain, the human brain, in the same method or in the same way as this other compound, which is illegal. Therefore, it's an illegal drug. It is somewhat of a novel approach. I am sure it's going to be contested. But like I say, it is a foot race to stay ahead of these misguided people, and we're doing our best to do just that.
The law also, it works for people who are trying to sell these drugs, and not necessarily those who are in possession of. Why not expand it to possession and make that a felony as well?
Well, we're really not after and these are mostly young people that are ingesting these. We're not after that. That's not what we're trying to stop. So we left that as a misdemeanor. But what we did do is we raised the sale to a felony where it wasn't before. And it's the folks that are selling it and making money off of selling these poisons to our youngsters. Those are the folks that we're after.
So, Senator, what do you want to say to Minnesotans, parents and kids alike, when it comes to these the issue of these synthetic drugs that seem to be permeating these days?
Be very, very careful, because although these are being advertised as synthetic marijuana or bath salts, which are really pretty harmless sounding substances, the truth of the matter is that they are poisonous and they are dangerous. People are dying from them. There are folks who will go through a hallucinogenic episode because they have used these. These are really dangerous, and I would encourage parents to pay attention to what's going on, and I would encourage youngsters to really think about what it is that you are ingesting, because like the meth from a few years ago, it's poison.
Okay. Senator Scott Newman, with those words, thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye now.